wonder how many people under the sound of my voice are so exhausted, not because you're out of strength, but because you're out of trust. You've been trying to control outcomes that only God can carry. You've been laying awake at night trying to figure out, force things to happen that only heaven has the authority to release. And here's the word for you today. Stop worrying and let God lead you. But worry is a trap dressed up like preparation. It tricks you into thinking you're being responsible, cautious, wise. But underneath the surface, worry is fear with a good PR team. It's fear in disguise, stealing your momentum, draining your joy, and convincing you that you have to see the full picture before you can take the first step. But let me tell you what God told me. Worry will lock you down, but faith will move you forward. You don't need to know how it's all going to work out. You just need to know who called you. Because when God speaks, He doesn't stutter. When He leads, He doesn't guess. And when He calls you out of the boat, He already knows you can walk on water. But if you're consumed with the waves, you'll miss the miracle. That's what worry does. It magnifies what might go wrong and minimizes the God who has never let you down. Let's get real. Worry doesn't just delay your destiny, it distracts you from your deliverance. You're trying to calculate everything, make it perfect, avoid every possible failure. But here's the truth. Faith doesn't need clarity to take the first step. Faith doesn't require the full map, just the next move. And some of us are paralyzed in places we were never meant to stay in, simply because we've made worry our default setting. You pray like you believe God is powerful, but then you worry like He's not present. You say He's your provider, but then you panic over every bill, every need, every what if. And the more you rehearse your fear, the harder it gets to respond in faith. That's what paralyzation looks like, not in your legs, but in your life. Your purpose stuck in neutral because your mind is stuck in overdrive. Worry builds walls, but faith opens doors. Worry plays defense, but faith plays offense. And if the enemy can't stop your calling, he'll try to stop your confidence. He'll fill your head with every reason why it won't work, why you'll fail, why you're not enough. But hear me, God didn't ask you to be perfect. He asked you to be available. He asked you to walk by faith, not by sight. There's a story in the Old Testament that hits right here. When the Israelites were standing at the Red Sea, the water in front of them and Pharaoh's army behind them, they did what most of us do when we feel trapped. They worried. They panicked. They doubted. And Moses said something that still echoes through time. Do not be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. That wasn't just motivational talk. That was a command to shift their posture from worry to worship, from fear to faith. God didn't bring you this far to leave you in anxiety. He didn't wake you up this morning so you could drown in doubt. You are still breathing because there is still something for you to build, something for you to break through, something for you to believe. And worry will always whisper, what if it doesn't work? But faith shouts back, what if it does? Faith doesn't deny reality. It just refuses to give it authority over your destiny. Maybe the thing that's keeping you stuck isn't the situation, it's your strategy. You've been trying to overthink your way into peace, but peace doesn't come through planning. It comes through positioning yourself in the presence of God, positioning your heart to trust, even when your eyes can't see. And when you position yourself in faith, something powerful happens. You move out of fear into freedom. You move out of analysis and into obedience. You start showing up even if you're scared. You start declaring the promise even if you don't see the fulfillment. That's what faith does. It mobilizes. It activates. It causes you to step into rooms you don't feel qualified for, face battles you don't feel strong enough for, and walk through valleys you don't feel ready for because you know who walks with you. Faith isn't about feelings. It's about focus. And when you shift your focus from the storm to the Savior, from the problem to the promise, from the fear to the Father, you'll find yourself moving even in the middle of uncertainty, because faith doesn't need a guarantee. It just needs a God word. And if God said go, you don't have to know everything. You just have to move. You've been carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders, pressure to provide, pressure to succeed, pressure to be everything for everyone. And while the outside world may see you smiling, showing up, getting it done, the inside of you is stretched thin, tired, and quietly wondering how long you can keep it up. But what if I told you that the pressure you feel doesn't mean you're failing? It means God is preparing you, because His plan is bigger than your pressure. Pressure isn't always the sign that something's going wrong. Sometimes it's the evidence that something is about to grow. Pressure creates diamonds. Pressure stretches capacity. Pressure reveals what's real and exposes what's not sustainable. And if God is allowing you to feel it, it's because He knows what's in you is stronger than what's on you. He didn't bring you this far to break you. He brought you this far to build you. But we live in a culture that glorifies grind and buries grace. We measure our worth by our performance. We define our peace by productivity. And we walk around with silent anxiety, thinking that if we don't handle it all, everything will fall apart. But here's the truth. You were never meant to carry the weight of what only God can control. That pressure you're feeling, that urgency to fix things, to figure everything out, to be perfect in a world full of problems, it's not from God. Because God doesn't lead by pressure. He leads by peace. And if pressure is pushing you into panic instead of pushing you into prayer, then it's not God's voice you're listening to. It's fear disguised as responsibility. God's plan doesn't bend to your deadline. His purpose for you isn't threatened by your weakness. He's not overwhelmed by your stress or surprised by your struggle. What overwhelms you is already under His authority. He's not pacing back and forth in heaven wondering how to fix your situation. He's already worked it out. The problem is we often confuse pressure with purpose. We think the weight we carry defines the worth we have. But listen, your worth was set before the pressure ever showed up. And sometimes God allows the pressure to free you, not to crush you. To free you from thinking it's all up to you. To remind you that your performance didn't get you here. And it won't keep you here. His plan will. Remember Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? The Son of God under intense pressure, so much so that he sweat drops of blood. He said, Father, if it be your will, take this cup from me, but not my will, yours be done. That was pressure. But that pressure was part of the plan. And through that pressure came the greatest breakthrough the world has ever known. So don't you dare let pressure convince you that God has forgotten you. Sometimes the greatest proof of your purpose is the resistance you feel in the middle of it. You're not under pressure because you're weak. You're under pressure because you're anointed. You're under pressure because the enemy knows what's in you is powerful. He knows if you ever let go of trying to control it all and actually surrendered it to God, you'd become unstoppable. That's why he attacks your mind with lies and fear. Because if he can't steal your calling, he'll try to suffocate it under the pressure of performance. But what the enemy forgot is that this pressure is just pushing you closer to God's plan. It's pressing you into prayer. It's making you prioritize what really matters. It's purifying your motives. It's preparing you for what's next. Because while you're stressing over how it's all going to work out, God is setting the stage for a story you couldn't write on your own. You thought the pressure was proof you were losing control, but it's actually proof that God is still in control. And while you're trying to manage expectations, God is moving behind the scenes in ways you can't see. He's aligning conversations, shifting situations, opening doors, and growing you in places that don't look like progress yet, but they are. So maybe today isn't about escaping the pressure. Maybe it's about remembering that God's plan is so much bigger, stronger, and wiser than the pressure you feel right now. What's weighing on you is not greater than the one who is within you. What's pressing on you is not more powerful than the promise over you. God didn't design you to carry it all. Peace isn't passive. It's not just a feeling or a moment of quiet. It's not something you stumble into when everything lines up just right. No. Peace is power. Peace is evidence. Peace is the echo of heaven saying, I'm here, even in this. And if you're in the middle of chaos, confusion, or crushing pressure, and you still feel peace, that's not natural, that's supernatural. That's not your ability to cope. That's the presence of God surrounding what your mind can't understand. Because you can fake a lot of things. You can fake joy with a smile. You can fake strength with a front. You can fake confidence with charisma, but you can't fake peace. You either have it or you don't. And when God is in it, you don't have to force it. When God is present, peace will be your proof. Not because the storm stopped, but because you're still standing in the middle of it. It's a peace that doesn't make sense. That's what Philippians 4:7 says. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. That means peace doesn't follow logic. It doesn't follow circumstances. It doesn't follow your 5-year plan. It follows presence. You can be in the middle of the hardest season of your life, bank account empty, relationship strained, the dream on life support, and still walk with peace. Not because you've got it all figured out, not because you're super spiritual, but because you know who walks with you. Peace isn't the absence of problems. It's the awareness of God's presence in your problem. And that's why the enemy comes after your peace, because he knows that if he can get your peace, he can get your perspective. He can't change God's promise over your life, so he'll try to change how you perceive it. He'll try to get you anxious over things you can't control. He'll get you panicking over what might happen, so you stop trusting what God already said would happen. But if you've got peace, you've got power. You can look at a closed door and say, if God didn't open it, I don't want it. You can sit in the waiting room of life and not lose your mind, because when peace rules your heart, anxiety loses its grip. When peace fills your mind, chaos loses its influence. And when peace surrounds your life, the enemy's weapons might be formed, but they won't prosper. Jesus didn't promise a life without trouble. In fact, he said the opposite. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. That's peace. That's confidence. That's authority. That means the presence of God doesn't remove every storm. It just removes the power of the storm to shake you. You still feel the wind, you still hear the thunder, but something in you refuses to bow to fear. Remember when Jesus was asleep in the boat, storm raging, disciples panicking, waves crashing over the sides, and there's Jesus knocked out on a pillow. Why? Because he knew something they didn't. He was peace in the middle of panic. And when they finally woke him up, he didn't just rebuke the wind and the waves, he rebuked them. Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? He was showing them that peace is not found in the absence of the storm. Peace is found in trusting the one who rules over it. And sometimes God doesn't calm the storm around you because he's trying to calm the storm in you. He's working in your spirit first. He's trying to anchor your faith so when the wind does stop, you don't just go back to shallow living, you go forward with deeper confidence. And this peace, this unshakable, undeniable peace, isn't something you earn. It's something you receive. It's the byproduct of presence. That's why some people can have everything the world says you need, money, success, influence, and still be miserable. But someone with nothing in their hands can have everything in their heart. Because peace doesn't live in possessions. It lives in the presence of the Prince of Peace. So when people ask, how are you not freaking out right now? How are you still moving forward? How are you not bitter, not broken, not buried under it? You can say, it's not me. It's not my strength. It's not my strategy. It's the presence of God holding me, covering me, guiding me. Peace is not the product of your environment. It's the evidence that Emmanuel, God with us, is closer than the fear, stronger than the pressure, and more faithful than the fact. One of the greatest lies the enemy will whisper into your spirit is that you can't move forward until you have it all figured out. That until you know exactly where this road is going, you should stay put. He'll tell you that risk is reckless, that waiting is safer, that questions mean God isn't in it. But God doesn't operate by giving you the full picture. He operates by faith. And faith doesn't need all the answers, it just needs the next step. We've been trained to crave control, to want certainty before we take a leap. We want to see the blueprint before we start building. We want to know the destination before we leave the driveway. But the truth is, God rarely shows you the whole path. He gives you just enough light for the step you're on. He's not trying to confuse you. Because if you had every answer, where would faith be? If you knew the whole route, you'd rely on your plan, not on his presence. But the journey of faith is built in the trust you develop while walking, not waiting. That's why Scripture says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Not a floodlight from miles ahead, a lamp. Just enough to see where to put your foot next. When God called Abraham, he didn't give him a 5-point plan. He said, go to the land I will show you. Not the land I'll describe to you or the land I'll send a map for. No, the land I will show you. Meaning you're not going to see it until you start moving. That's how God works. He gives you revelation in motion. And some of us are stuck not because God hasn't spoken, but because we're still waiting for step 10 when he already gave us step 1. You don't need to know how the whole thing ends. You just need the courage to obey what God already told you to do. Maybe it's make the call, apply for the job, start the ministry, release the bitterness, forgive without an apology. It may not make sense now, but obedience is the birthplace of clarity. We think clarity leads to obedience, but that's not how God moves. Obedience leads to clarity. God reveals more as you trust Him more. He's not interested in giving you information. He wants transformation. And that transformation happens when you step into the unknown with a known God. When you step out, not because you understand it all, but because you believe He's in it all. You don't have to see the provision to take the step. You don't have to see the outcome to walk in obedience. That's why it's called walking by faith, not walking by facts. If you keep waiting for certainty, you'll miss your calling. Because certainty is not the same as confidence. Confidence says God is with me even if I don't know where this is going. And sometimes that's the greatest declaration of faith you can make. God's not going to compete with your need for control. If you want to be in control of everything, He'll let you have it.